Well, hello, this is Steve Samuel from Design Visionaries, and today we're going to be demonstrating a little jig that we created and we're going to show you how that enables us to verify that what we were assuming about the reverse direction rower mechanism was indeed true. So what we have here is a pivot that looks like this, and a pivot that looks like that, and a pivot underneath so that we could change the angle of the oars. And in order to try out our theory, since we didn't want to make gear teeth on these because it's too complex for most hobbyists, although we have a wonderful 3-axis milling machine where we could do it out of metal and all of that. But we're just trying to make a design and do it so that it could be interesting and fun for people who may not even have this advanced machinery. So anyway, what happens here is, of course, this outer oar part is pivoted by a cable that's strung from here and then around there, and vice versa, there and around there. So hopefully what we'll find is that this little action will work with just the cables. And now I will show you some of the woodwork techniques that we did to make this little jig. Thank you.
The next phase of our creation was doing this woodwork, and as you can see, we used plywood and partially cut it on a bandsaw, and for the pieces that we couldn't get on the bandsaw, we used a reciprocating saber saw. And plywood is adequate for this little prototype that we're making because we just want to prove the concept. Of course, plywood is too thin, so we had a portion of the plywood that was built up with, I think we used a 2x6, and we cut that into a round circle. And we laminated on top of the plywood, but then we wanted it to be all smooth, so we used this router setup. We just we clamped a pivot to a router, and we rotated it and made it a perfect circle. And then we needed the little knob that goes into the pivot block, and so the knob has a little groove, and so we used a lathe for that, a small lathe, and then we used a big lathe to make the portion of the oar that connects to the pivot block. And young Cole here is an intern. He's a fantastic person, and he learned how to use the router very quickly. I'm sorry, the lathe very quickly. And so there he is lathing it and sanding it, and we had an oar. The final step in this process was to create the actual prototype, to put all the parts together and see if it works. And as you can see, the prototype, it works very well. It's smooth, it's satisfying. It rotates the right amount as I do the motions, and as I turn the oar, the outside oar turns the right way, so the cables work. Everything seems to be perfect on this prototype. The very next step is to create a more professional model of this, where everything is all tight and we use bearings and we machine it the right way and we put gears on it. So that will be the fun next step.